So this became the official McElroy hoodie after filming Woman and Men in it, and then it just made it easy to go outside with. So today, I'm reviewing my final McElroy novel, Ancient History, and it's also his third novel because I have no proper reading order, and it's decent. It's a very, this bookshelf is falling. It's a very middle way passage for McElroy, you can tell. In his first two novels, they were very European, and it almost took him almost four novels, to realize, like, oh God, I live in America. Oh God, I live in New York. So this is the novel where you start to see that passage, where you start to see modern McElroy out of it. It's about a story. Let's go to the story first. So it's about a guy who goes to an apartment. The guy in the apartment committed suicide. It's somebody he had contact with, and he just starts jotting down his life and just as almost as a form of communication with this man's suicide. And he feels some sort of responsibility for the man's suicide, but it's never explicitly stated. And he left the interpretation, like, if it is up to suicide, it was not in any direct way. He just might be feeling guilt for the situation. Strange, but pretty McElroy. And you see a lot of him trying to work with early concepts in here. Like, he talks about the Earth being a spaceship, like you see in Women and Men. He has whole segments about boomerangs, like you see in the Boomman's Bodega in Night Souls. There's also a person entering an apartment when he's not supposed to. Woman and Men as well, and there was another one. But yeah, it's just the character going through his life, which essentially, when you really boil it down, is all McElroy novels. And this one, it really focuses a lot more on youth than other novels, where it shows him from childhood going all the way to his college years and a little bit of adulthood. And traditional McElroy, it jumps around. This one is a bit more linear than stuff like Actress in the House, which is all over the place, or Women and Men, but it does kind of have an order to it, but it does deviate from that order as well. Funnily enough, there's a lot more cursing in this novel, mainly because he's dealing with kids. Now, I missed this until I went on Wikipedia, but it's called Ancient History, a Paraphase, not a paraphrase. There's no R there. I had a great theory about paraphrase, and then it didn't work. But he added a description for it, and if you ever look at any of McElroy's interviews or like him talking, his normal speech is pretty difficult in itself. But I believe what he's trying to get at is that when we look at things like memory, our thoughts, when we look at and we write them down, we draw them together, it's almost like another space. And within that other space, it's almost like another time field as well. And that sounds super cheesy and scientific, pseudoscience, but what I mean by that is that it's like the thing, we don't actually remember things, we remember our memory. When we look at this, when we go back through our memories, we're not actually getting an accurate description of what happened in past accounts. We only, see our perspective, we don't remember everything, and sometimes we get things wrong. So the conclusions that we come to in these memories, the experience that we have, the emotions that I have, we don't know how correct they are. We don't know how accurate they are. We don't know if the results that we have from them and what we thought was the point, how other people interacted things, if that's even close to the truth. So a paraphrase, another space, an alternate space that still affects our own, that's what these memories are. So see the main character writing his memories down and feeling guilty, none of this might be totally accurate. And this is also contrasted because ancient history is spoken a lot throughout this novel, with his ruminations on Herodotus, which is where his name derived from, one of the stories in the book. Herodotus, one of the first, I talked about him on the channel before, but is said to have invented the genre of history. When you read his stuff, it is filled with fiction, it's filled with myth, and there's a lot of inaccuracies. However, like nowadays, where it's so much easier to travel, he had to learn a lot about this in other countries by hearsay, and from other people who traveled there. So our construction of history, especially at Herodotus' history at that time, what was generally accepted, was based off of false impressions. And again, much like our memory, and possibly the guilt that Sai felt from Dom, a lot of these could be false impressions. And especially given the fact that he's had very little interaction with Dom, only mainly through letters. So in Dom's suicide, which may or may not be a suicide in the novel, but it's pretty presumed to be so, his guilt for that can be completely unfounded. Or perhaps, maybe there's some validity to it, that that Sai just doesn't remember some interaction with Dom or some way that he wasn't really there for him enough that could have led to the suicide, could have prevented that suicide. But it's based off this separate reality, but regardless, that reality has more effect on the character Sai than the actual events that happened, which is, I believe, what McElroy is trying to get with the whole paraphase thing. Now, unfortunately, that's not to say that this book is without its faults. It's a very middling McElroy book, to be completely honest. And while, yeah, he does have a lot of content with the character's past and everything like that, it does seem kind of maligning at points as well and kind of repetitive. And honestly, with the whole plot with the suicide, it's not a very good intricate link. If it was Al who was the one who committed suicide, who was the main character within his past and a friend of throughout his whole life, it would have had that connection a lot better, but then it wouldn't really be that McElroy realness, unfortunately. And there was a break in the middle of the book where Dom's son comes in, he's a police officer, and he checks on the place and the narrator hides, and there's an actual break in the text, and it's pretty cool. The book could have ended there. Like, that's 150 pages in, and a 300-page book, and it just kind of peters out after that, unfortunately. So I don't really recommend this to McElroy fans. If you want more of like the slice of life McElroy stuff without like all the hoo-ha and whatnot, I'd probably recommend people more to Heinz Kidnap or to Actress in the House, which is, which still has the hoo-ha, but it's a lot better than this book, and it's something I'm much more invested in. This one I'd only recommend to people who either want to read everything or just want to know more about the transition. But it is a very skippable one. But hey, now that I finished this book, McElroy is ancient history for me. I finished all this stuff, and thanks for joining me on the ride. It was a doozy. But yeah, I really appreciate all the help and support for this, and it was a lot of fun and a great literary challenge for me. So thank you so much.